intense desperation as they confront a monstrous werewolf. Behemoth, immune to their potent defenses, feel the tension as the elders, beings of ancient power, vanish, leaving behind a community grappling with fear and uncertainty. Dive into the sinister plans of the Necromancer, whose dark intelligence threatens to alter the balance of power forever. This tale of survival, alliance, and betrayal will keep you on the edge of your seat, questioning who the real monsters are. Crimson Dawn, echoes of darkness, where every shadow hides a secret and every victory could be a trap. Chapter 1. The Alliance's Resolve. In the dimly lit war room of the camp, a meeting of grave importance was underway. Varric and the other elders sat alongside the camp leaders, their faces etched with the weight of their discussion. The threat of the undead army, with its newfound abominations, loomed over them like a dark cloud. Varric addressed the room with a solemn tone. The undead army is evolving at a rate we haven't seen before. These abominations pose a significant threat, not just to you, but to our existence as well. We must stop them before they grow too strong. Elana, the camp leader, nodded in agreement. We've seen their capabilities firsthand. Their strength and numbers are increasing. We need a definitive plan to halt their advance. One of the elders, Elara, spoke next, her voice tinged with an uncharacteristic sense of urgency. Our survival is now intertwined with yours. Though it is unusual for our kind to rely on humans, this alliance has become essential. We must combine our strengths to defeat this enemy. Alex, now a seasoned strategist, chimed in. We need to exploit their weaknesses. Silver has been effective against the werewolves, and the Elders' shadow powers work against the regular undead. But we need a new approach for these mutated abominations. The group delved into a deep strategic discussion, exploring various tactics and weapons that could be effective against the diverse threats. Varric suggested using their knowledge of the undead's behavior to set traps and ambushes, while Elara proposed a series of coordinated strikes using both human and vampire forces to weaken their enemies' defenses. As the chapter closed, the meeting ended with a renewed sense of determination. Plans were set in motion to gather intelligence, strengthen defenses, and prepare for a large-scale offensive. This alliance, once formed out of necessity, had grown into a bond of mutual respect and reliance. Crimson Dawn, echoes of darkness, began with a unified front, as humans and vampires braced to face their greatest challenge yet, an endeavor that would require every ounce of their combined strength and cunning. Chapter 2. The Necromancer's Insight. Amidst the ruins of the Alpha's fallen kingdom, the Necromancer stood in contemplation. He hovered over one of his grotesque abominations, a being born of his dark alchemy, now lifeless and still. The creature bore no visible marks or wounds, presenting a mystery as to how it had been vanquished. The Necromancer's eyes, glowing with an unsettling light, scanned the lifeless form. His fingers trailed over its cold, twisted flesh, probing for clues. Time seemed to stand still as he delved into his profound understanding of biology and necromancy, seeking answers in the creature's silent testament. Suddenly, he paused, his gaze lifting towards the darkened sky. A moment of realization seemed to wash over him, an epiphany born of his enhanced intelligence and sinister knowledge. The air around him grew charged with the weight of his thoughts. Could it be that the Necromancer had unraveled the mystery of the creature's demise? Had he comprehended the elusive power of the Elders and their shadow forms? His mind, a vortex of twisted genius, might have indeed devised a strategy to counteract the elusive and intangible nature of the Elder's abilities. With a barely perceptible nod, the Necromancer issued a silent command. The Undead Legion, an army of monstrosities and intelligent zombies, began to mobilize. They departed from the remnants of the Alpha's territory, an exodus marked by eerie discipline and purpose. The Undead army set out on a long march back towards their sprawling metropolis, the heart of the Necromancer's dark empire. As they moved, the Necromancer's presence at the forefront served as a chilling herald of his next move in this deadly game of power. The chapter closed on this ominous procession, leaving a trail of questions in its wake. Had the Necromancer indeed found a way to overcome the Elder's powers? What new horrors would he unleash upon the world? Crimson Dawn, Echoes of Darkness, continued to weave its tale of intrigue and survival, with each faction bracing for the next chapter in this unending war. Chapter 3. The Pact of Shadows. In the camp, a palpable tension hung in the air as scouts rushed in with urgent reports. They informed the gathered leaders and elders that the Undead Legion was moving, inching steadily towards their metropolis. The information was critical, and a meeting was quickly convened to discuss their response. Varric, representing the elders, spoke with a sense of immediacy. We must intercept the Undead Legion before they can reach their metropolis. Once there, they will regroup and become an even greater threat. With the night still young, we can use our shadow abilities to reach them swiftly. He paused, his eyes meeting those of the camp leaders. However, for such an endeavor, we will require significant strength. We need to feed, and feed well, to ensure our powers are at their peak. The camp leaders, Elena, Alex, and Captain Knox, exchanged concerned glances. The request was heavy, but the gravity of the situation was undeniable. Understanding the necessity of the moment, the elders proposed a solution. We will need twice the number of sacrifices to fully empower ourselves for this task, Varric stated solemnly. Elena, though troubled, nodded in agreement. Alex and Captain Knox stepped forward, offering themselves as the first sacrifices. It was a gesture to demonstrate their trust in the elders and the severity of their common plight. The scene that unfolded next highlighted the parasitic nature of the elders' existence. The camp members gathered, some with resignation, others with a sense of duty, as the elders fed. This act, though disturbing, was accepted as a necessary evil, a grim exchange for the protection and power the elders provided. Once their hunger was satiated, the elders' forms seemed to gain an ethereal strength, their eyes glowing with renewed vigor. Without a word, they dispersed into the shadows, becoming one with the darkness as they set out on their critical mission. The chapter closed with the camp in a state of somber anticipation. The alliance with the elders, born out of necessity, had led to this moment of sacrifice and hope. As the elders vanished into the night, the camp braced for the outcome of this daring interception, aware that the fate of their world hung in the balance. Crimson Dawn, Echoes of Darkness, continued to unfold, a tale of uneasy alliances and desperate measures in the face of overwhelming darkness. Chapter 4. The Necromancer's Proposition. The march of the Undead Legion came to an abrupt standstill as they encountered an unexpected blockade. 4 shadowy figures, the elders in their true forms, stood defiantly in the path of the advancing horde. The Necromancer, observing from a distance, allowed a subtle smile to creep across his lips. With a flick of his hand, he commanded the front lines of zombies and monstrous abominations to charge at the spectral figures. As the undead surged forward, the elders, embodiments of ancient power, moved with supernatural swiftness. They weaved through the army, their shadowy forms a blur, leaving a trail of fallen undead in their wake. It was as though a vast, dark cloud had passed over the battlefield, the Legion dropping like flies under its shadow. After the initial wave of undead had been decimated, the elders resumed their positions, once again forming an impenetrable barrier. The remaining undead hesitated, their numbers significantly reduced. Then, a startling development unfolded. A small group of robed figures emerged from the undead ranks, carrying a tattered white flag. The Necromancer himself walked at their forefront, his presence commanding even in this gesture of truce. The elders, still shrouded in their shadowy forms, moved forward to meet the approaching group. As they stood face to face, the Necromancer began to speak in a deep, guttural voice, each word seeming to strain against his undead nature. "I know who you are. I know why you're here. I understand your powers, but I also know a way to stop it." The elders listened, their confusion evident even in their ethereal state. The Necromancer held up the head of an experimented abomination, using it as a grotesque visual aid. He detailed his studies on the effects of their powers, unveiling his understanding of their shadow manipulation and its effectiveness against the undead. Then came his most shocking revelation. "What if I could show you a way that you no longer need the humans?" he proposed. The chapter closed on this tense, uncertain moment. The Necromancer's knowledge and offer hung in the air like a dark promise. What did he know about the Elders' powers that they didn't? And what could this mean for the fragile alliance between humans and vampires? Crimson Dawn, echoes of darkness, continued to unravel its complex web of survival, power, and potential betrayal. Chapter 5. The Proposal of Power. On the desolate battlefield, a strange and tense parley unfolded between the Elders and the Necromancer. Around them, the remnants of the undead army watched in silent anticipation. The Necromancer resumed speaking, his voice resonating with a depth that seemed to transcend his undead form. "I have delved into the realms of genetics, genealogy, and biology far beyond what was known in your ancient times," he began. "Your need to feed on human blood is not merely a habit. It is a requirement, a source of power embedded in your genetic makeup. But what if there's another source of power? One that could free you from your dependence on humans and potentially grant you even greater strength?" Varric, the eldest among the elders, stepped forward, his form momentarily becoming more defined in the shadows. "Your words intrigue us, Necromancer, but they also warrant skepticism," Varric replied, his voice echoing centuries of wisdom. "Our existence has spanned millennia, and never have we encountered an alternative to sustain our kind. What makes you think you have discovered such a source?" The Necromancer met Varric's gaze with an unflinching stare, his eyes glowing with a sinister intelligence. "My research into the undead has uncovered secrets that even your ancient minds have not fathomed. The virus that animates me and my creations holds keys to powers and energies that you have yet to understand. It is not merely a curse, but a wellspring of untapped potential." As the Necromancer spoke, it became evident that his intelligence might indeed match or even surpass that of Varric's. His knowledge of the modern sciences, combined with his experience as an undead, provided him with unique insights into life, death, and the energies that flow between. The chapter ended with this tense but intriguing dialogue. The offer made by the Necromancer held both promise and peril. Could the Elders trust this being, Once human, now a master of death and reanimation. And what would this new power source mean for their ancient existence? Crimson Dawn, echoes of darkness, continued to weave a complex tale of ancient knowledge clashing with modern science, set against the backdrop of a world struggling to find balance amidst chaos. Chapter 6. The Weight of Survival. In the human camp, a sense of expectation hung in the air as the community members waited for news from the battlefield. Around a small fire, Elena, Alex, and Captain Knox discussed the future in hushed tones, contemplating the prospect of peace after the defeat of the Undead army. With the Alpha's kingdom in ruins, and now potentially the Undead army, we might finally have a chance at a normal life again. Elena mused, hope glinting in her eyes. Captain Knox nodded in agreement, but it was Alex who captured the essence of their struggle. You know, my whole life has felt like a constant battle. Just when I thought I was getting somewhere, life would knock me down. But I always remembered that quote, "What does not kill us makes us stronger." I believed that no one else could endure what I had to, so I always told life to bring it on. Whenever things got tough, I'd challenge them, asking if that was the best they could do. He paused, looking into the fire. The state of the world now, it's like the ultimate test of that philosophy. But what I've realized is that there are no rainbows waiting for us. No matter what we do, something or someone is always there, ready to kick us in the teeth. The others nodded, understanding the hard truth in his words. Alex continued, "We have to be ready for whatever comes next, and I know deep down that whatever it is, it won't be enough to take me down. It won't be enough to take any of us down. We've come too far and fought too hard." The chapter closed on this somber, yet defiant note. In Crimson Dawn, echoes of darkness, the constant struggle for survival had forged a resilience in the camp's members. They were united not just by circumstance, but by a shared determination to withstand whatever challenges the world threw at them. As they waited for news from the battlefield, they prepared for the next chapter in their fight for survival, knowing full well that peace was often just the lull before the next storm. Chapter 7. The Test of Power. On the desolate battlefield, tension crackled in the air as the elders contemplated the Necromancer's proposal. Finally breaking the silence, Varric addressed him with a blend of skepticism and curiosity. "How can we trust you? What stops us from simply destroying you right here and now?" The Necromancer met Varric's gaze unflinchingly. "You can't," he stated flatly. "Your powers may work on these lesser undead, but had I sent my elite fighters, your shadow forms would have been ineffective." One of the elders, doubtful, challenged him. "You're bluffing." Without hesitation, the Necromancer stepped forward, a challenge in his stance. "If your powers can fail me, then this meeting is merely a ruse. But if I remain unaffected by your most potent weapon, perhaps you should seriously consider my offer." In response, the elders moved with supernatural speed, their shadow forms slicing through the air towards the Necromancer. The battlefield held its breath as their shadows passed through him, but he remained standing, utterly unaffected. The Necromancer looked at the elders, his expression one of vindication. "As I suspected," he began, "your powers are ineffective against me. This is because of the unique interaction between my genetic structure and the virus. When I was transformed into what I am now, my extensive knowledge in genetics and genealogy allowed me to manipulate my own evolution. I engineered myself to be immune to your shadow manipulation." He continued, "Your powers rely on a specific interaction with living cells, and those infected by the standard virus strain. My cells have evolved beyond that, making them impervious to your influence." The chapter ended with the elders absorbing this revelation, their stance shifting from one of aggression to cautious consideration. The necromancer's immunity to their powers introduced a new dynamic to the confrontation. The once clear lines between predator and prey, strength and weakness, were now blurred. Crimson Dawn, echoes of darkness, was unfolding into a complex narrative of power, survival, and the unanticipated consequences of meddling with the very essence of life and death. Chapter 8. The Rising Tide. In the human camp, days had passed with no word from the elders, and worry had begun to set in among the leaders. Gathered in the main tent, Elena, Alex and Captain Knox discussed the unnerving silence. "It's not like the elders to be gone this long without contact," Elena said, a note of concern in her voice. "They would have needed to feed again by now. We must assume the worst, that they have been defeated." Panic rippled through the camp at this realization. Without the elders, their main line of defense against the undead seemed perilously thin. "Without the elders, we are surely doomed against the undead," murmured one of the camp members, echoing the fear of many. Alex stepped forward, his posture one of determination. "If the elders have indeed fallen, it wasn't before they helped us build better defenses and a sustainable camp," he declared. "With the added defenses and the knowledge they shared, maybe it's time we stopped relying on others and started relying on ourselves." Miles away, in the seclusion of a hidden forest, a group of werewolves had established a new den under the Alpha's leadership. The Alpha, aware of its dwindling numbers, recognized the urgent need to strengthen its pack, and the human camp had now become a prime target. At that moment, 2 werewolves burst into the den, carrying a collection of limbs and body parts from their recent encounters with the undead. Each piece was coated in the mysterious greenish goo. Laying them out before the Alpha, the werewolves awaited their leader's command. The Alpha, its eyes fixed on the goo-covered remains, directed the werewolves already affected by the substance to consume more of it. As they did, a transformation began. The werewolves grew in size and strength, evolving into more formidable beings. One werewolf, in particular, underwent a drastic change, growing to tower over the rest of the pack, including the Alpha. It had become a werewolf abomination, a monstrous embodiment of power and ferocity. The chapter closed on this ominous development. Back in the human camp, the community braced for a future without the elders, rallying around their newfound resolve to depend on themselves. Meanwhile, in the forest, the Alpha's pack had evolved into something far more dangerous, setting the stage for a new chapter in the ongoing struggle for survival. In Crimson Dawn, Echoes of Darkness. Chapter 9. The Ominous Visitor. An urgent alarm resonated throughout the human camp, jolting everyone into high alert. "Something's coming!" shouted a lookout, his voice laced with alarm. The camp scrambled into defense mode, prepared to face whatever threat loomed. Without warning, a colossal figure crashed through the surrounding forest. It was a werewolf of unprecedented size, its fur tinged with a sickly green hue. Standing as tall as the trees, it effortlessly pushed them aside, making its way towards the camp's defensive barriers. The camp's members stared in disbelief at the sheer magnitude of the creature. Once it reached the barrier, the behemoth paused, its massive form casting a shadow over the camp. "Fire!" commanded Eleanor, and the camp responded in unison. Arrows tipped with silver, particle grenades, slingshots, and every available weapon were launched at the gigantic werewolf. But to their dismay, the onslaught seemed to have no effect, The creature remained unscathed, an unmovable force of nature. Yet strangely, it made no move to attack. It simply stood there, as if observing them. After a tense standoff, the creature turned and lumbered away, disappearing from whence it came. Relief swept over the camp as they cheered, believing they had repelled the creature. But amidst the celebration, Alex approached Elena with a concerned expression. "We didn't hurt it, not even a scratch," he said, his voice heavy with doubt. "That thing could have torn through us with ease. Why did it just leave? Was it assessing our defenses?" Elena nodded, sharing his apprehension. "We need to prepare for the worst. This might just be the beginning." The chapter closed with the camp grappling with the implications of this encounter. With the elders missing, the undead army consolidating power in their metropolis, and the emergence of the giant werewolf, the balance of power was shifting in this dark world. Crimson Dawn, echoes of darkness, ended this part of the saga with a sense of foreboding, leaving the fate of the camp, and indeed the world, shrouded in uncertainty. Thank you for joining me on this chilling journey. If your thirst for the unknown and the unexplained is still unquenched, I invite you to delve deeper into the abyss of terror. Just beyond the veil of reality, another story awaits to send shivers down your spine. Dare to join me in the next video, where the unknown becomes known and the unseen seen. Until then, keep the lights dim and your mind open. This is Professor Shadow, signing off.